all the speakers who came in on part of the excellent presentation. Sorry, I missed the first part. I'll have to go back and look and see. To those who are presenting this afternoon, I look forward to hearing from you. So again, thank you. I'm going to change it up a little bit because I like the atmosphere and the interaction that we're feeling here. And what a powerful group. When you talk about health, I want to take it from the perspective of what you shared on already today, and that is prevention is better than cure, like you said. I want to take it from prevention, treatment, and end of life. Okay, so that's the scope of healthcare, scope of health. Prevention, curative or treatment, and end of life. So one other I will put as a subtopic. And then we'll look at some of the most common things. Strangely enough, and you could eat as you were listening.
On one side of the list.
Strangely enough, in relationship to what we were just talking about, the main cause of death in our setting is homicide now. We're killing each other more than disease. Okay? On a basic level, man to man in our setting, we have an epidemic. And because of international setting, I won't say the numbers, but you can average a certain amount per year over the last 10 years. How many young men have we lost? And you work at the hospital, we see what comes into those emergency rooms. And I'm telling you, the greatest epidemic is maybe self-hate. Why do we hate each other? There's a deep-rooted hate. I watch films sometime or, YouTube videos, and you see people on the beach of different ethnic and racial groups. No fighting, no problem, no bust-up. Try to do that on one of these holidays. And I keep trying to figure out, what's the problem? Okay? So if we're going to really start with changing this, it goes deeper. It's something within our being that rejects health, most of all that rejects life. Something in our nature, in our people, that they just hate life. So if you hate life, then it's nothing. You want prevention. What is prevention? Nothing to live for, huh? There's nothing to live for. There's no hope in life. There's no hope in living. If I have hope in living, I'm not going to smoke marijuana. Huh? I grew up for a period of time in Nassau, in an area where raiders and rebellion guys were in the neighborhood, and I played on the court with them. I had no desire to smoke marijuana with them. No desire to join them. It was in South Beach area, Pinewood, raiders, rebellion, gun hogs, gun dog. No desire. So, again, we can talk about health, but it has to be, health comes from life. You have to want to live. And again, you have to want to live for a reason. Why do I want to live? I want you to think about that. Because that's what drives men and men's health care. Why do women want to live? Why do, when they have any issues, they run to the doctor quickly? Because the women want to live. And it seems like the men want to die, because that's who's killing out each other. We can talk about the racial issues in our country all we want, but you open up the paper every day, I don't see a Southeast Asian, I don't see a Caucasian, I don't see a Middle Easterner. I see the pages filled with people who look like you and I, and they live here. We have great Caucasian patients and friends, so this is not about a racial thing, but it's a reality. And in the same community. Alright, so we need to rethink about life. Why are we here? Why do I want to live? Why do I want to take care of this body? Why is this body important? Because the fact is, no matter what we eat, how much nutrition we take, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I've seen people on the most perfect diet, exercise, work out, do everything right. Jeff Bezos. Not Jeff, Steve Jobs, you mentioned him earlier. Multi-billionaire. I know he did all of his screening and checks. Pancreatic cancer, wasn't it? Out in 9 months. And he would have paid anything to be alive. So, so when we look at health, we have to look at it from the perspective that I'm here alive for a period of time. I don't know how long. And so my best thing to do is to care for this body. And then, of course, oh yeah, that's another point, screening. So prevention, screening, treatment, and lastly, end of life. We have to think about it. Non-communicable diseases, big word, simply means in our setting, diseases that are not transmitted by an infectious agent. So right now, corona, of course, the numbers we don't know. It's, globally, it's a viral infection. It's really not fully preventable. It's not a lifestyle disease, in a sense. I mean, you can slow down the transmission, washing your hands, social distancing, doing some other preventative public health things, yeah? But diseases that we can usually prevent that are lifestyle in our setting that are affecting most of our men are hypertension or cardiovascular diseases, whether that's hypertension that causes heart disease, stroke, kidney disorder, losing the kidneys. Of course, diabetes come into that category as well. High cholesterol. All of these come under the umbrella of cardiovascular. All right? That can lead to, sadly, in our setting, strokes, heart attack, kidney disease, of course, with diabetes, amputation. So we're going to look at those, each one of those quickly, and what numbers you should look for. Of course, now the growing concern, which we've never thought about in our setting, I might touch on it at the time, colon cancer. Men, of course, your prostate, and checking into prostate cancer. We have some interesting rates here. And of course, skin cancer too in our setting. We don't think, in our sunny weather, we have a risk for skin cancer. But those are the main things. So let's look at your numbers. I don't play numbers, but let's talk about numbers. What for? All right, so let's look at hypertension. Hypertension is an elevation in blood pressure. The top number, it's systolic, we call it. The wrong word is in the heart pumps. That's the number at the top, right? Help me, professional. When the heart relaxes and fills back up, that's the lower number. Diastolic. So the top number should be 120 over 80 or below. If it goes below, 90, 70 as an adult, you're in the area of hypotension, which is just as bad, right? So you're not getting enough perfusion to the brain. But anything over what? What is the numbers you want to use for diagnosing hypertension? Anybody? 140 over what? 90. So 140 over 90 was the old criteria of Adams. Now they're saying if you have a pressure of 130, 80, 85 is pre-hypertension. So now they're bringing in a new thing. But the old baseline is 140, 90, and you should have that on more than 3 separate readings. So if I put the machine on, I get 140, 90, chances are I'm not hypertensive. Well, have what? What they call it in our setting? Pressure. You have pressure, and it's a silent killer because I've seen people walk around, come to the office, get checked, 210, 220, 130, and I know only God is with them. So you want to have that check because, that's a miracle. You imagine your brain under that amount of pressure in a vessel. You're a builder, the pressure in the pump. Okay? And walking around, no symptoms, that's the mercy of God on them. Brought them in to save them for that time, yeah? So you have high blood pressure. Now, of course, you can see it as any amount. Hypertension is usually genetic. So your parents have it. Now, genetic is a funny thing. It doesn't mean you will get it. It means you have a higher risk of developing it because it's in your family line. All right? So risk doesn't mean I'm going to get it. But guess what? If I ate like how mommy told me to eat, if daddy used to put salt on his fish, if mommy used to cook with shortening and lard, if daddy used to come home and, don't go walking or anything, Well, he had his pressure, he didn't take his medicine, he gone and burned his bush. And that's how he lived. Then I practiced those same things. Mommy told me how to cook and daddy showed me how to cook. Alright? But if I change the lifestyle, even though the risk is there, I know the risk. There's some slim people I've seen who pressure higher than some people who were obese. Interesting, eh? Family history. Family history. So, life genetic, lifestyle changes. Plus, we like salt and everything in our setting. We love salt in our food. And I keep telling patients you don't need salt. You can put lemon, you can put pepper, you can put garlic, onion, you can put all of the vegetables and herbs on it. Rosemary, thyme, to season your food. You don't need salt. Salt is one of the major causes of elevated high blood pressure. Final, finish. And a touch of pressure, and I only use a touch of salt. You don't need salt. You don't need sodium. Now, what about sea salt? Same thing. You don't need it. Okay? Even though the sea salt has all the minerals, and they just took sodium out of the regular salt and sell it back to us. That's another story. Take out good salt from the water in agua with all the healthy nutrients, the magnesium, the calcium, all right, the phosphorus, the vitamins. Take it out. Take just the sodium. Throw the rest back and sell it. Get it for $1 a ton and sell you the box for $2 and you buy it. Huh? You buy the box for $2 and they pay us $1. Oh my goodness, that's for another thing, all right? But you don't need it. You don't need it. Okay? Exercising 3 to 4 times is a fitness guru here, and some of you guys see all that. I'm still working at it. I'm still getting at it. Got my bike, got my home gym. I'm working at it, you know? It's a lifestyle thing. So I thought out of that, wow, you know, I saw a patient who came in, a gentleman, he was 80, you know, flew in from the States, and, you know, I met with him. Guy's 80, walking around, taking, you know, living his life. I said, wow, I have to think about living at least to 80. Now, the good Lord called me fine, but you have to think that people are living older now. You have to think about, I have to live 80, 85, 90. Some people live up to 100. Why can't you? You must have a desire to live, but the steps start now. So that's hypertension. Hypertension have the risk of so many other diseases. Stroke, of course, major cause of death again. And not only death, but we call it morbidity. So mortality is death. Morbidity is you have a decreased quality of life. Someone has a stroke at 45, 50, you lay in bed for 10, 50, you might die, you know. That's a crazy thing. There's some people who live and they're bedridden and their family have to turn them every so often and spend more money. It would have been better. Some of them I know wish they had a stroke and died, but now they had a stroke and now bedridden for 15 years. Can you imagine that? The quality of life. Okay, so the hypertension. Sit down, listen. All right, so diabetes, second thing, very common in our setting. But before I get to diabetes, the hypertension, and this is a cross-section of the man in this country. You put them under pressure medicine, and they don't want to take it. So it's affecting their, I say, don't stop because of your libido or your drive. And that's an important thing for some men. You know? A woman giving them hell at home. Okay? That woman giving them pressure. You think these women? Huh? Because of recording and everything. But I can say, I had a lady some time ago say, oh, I gotta bring my husband because he ain't performing. The man almost 80. So you think these women ain't one, they're paying stupid. Excuse my expression. You know what I mean? We adult men on watching. Like one time ago, women didn't used to say that. Mama them used to stay quiet and suffer 10, 15 years and find other things to do. Why do you think they used to like cooking and cleaning so much? And in church every Sunday, because and man, when you look back, you say, oh, that's why Mama was always gone. Daddy had ED, erectile dysfunction. And there was no doctor or man didn't talk about that. Oh, you shut your mouth now. You don't talk about that. So it's the same thing now. The man have these challenges with the pressure. They take a certain medicine. Man, that doctor ain't working. I said, you die and have a stroke, she can find someone in here. All you. All right, so it's serious. I said that as a joke, but that's one of the major causes of stroke in 2021. Men have the information, the medications out there. Put them on if they don't want it, because it affects some area of your life. And they said, discuss it with your doctor, discuss it with your family. Okay, then we look at hypertension. That's hypertension or pressure. Sugar diabetes, another major common thing. You know, fasting, glucose level, you want it under 110. If it's 120 and above, on fasting, you're looking at diabetes. That's your cutoff point. Okay, the normal is 190 to 105, 110 max. Okay, so sugar diabetes, what we call in the Bahamas, is again genetic, again lifestyle. Tremante, I've been cutting out my carbs. You realize carbohydrates are the main thing that causes the elevated sugar and weight and fat. So this new thing with ketone now, cutting out the carbohydrates, cutting out anything. So many things have sugar. Juice has sugar. The cereal has sugar. The ketchup has high fructose sugar. You have to look at everything. The rice breaks down into glucose. All right? The tea, the coffee. Now you look at labels now. 1 can of soda, 50 grams of sugar. You know what it is? Almost 10 teaspoons of sugar in 1 can of soda. So if you have 3 or 4 of them a day, you don't think you get diabetes? Interesting. I went to Southeast Asia some years ago, a few times. And over there, especially in India, the sugar, diabetes is epidemic there. And even the East Indians that come to the Caribbean, diabetes is one of the biggest things. But you look at their diet, they like roti and wraps and rice and that kind of thing. Now the Chinese don't develop a lot of diabetes, even though they eat rice. But look what they have, small portions. And they might only eat 1 meal a day. You got a lot of these things. It's how they cook it too. We cook it with lard and shortening and butter and, oil and all of that. We cook our rice like that. And then we eat rice 3 meals a day. I went to a restaurant, they eating tuna and rice for breakfast. They doing that here? It's still a great deal. You go to Nassau, Abaco or something like that, they serving the breakfast with rice now. Then lunch you're eating rice. Then you're eating rice. Too much carbohydrate. So diabetes is the inability of your pancreas to produce enough insulin to bring that glucose down. So you have elevated blood sugar levels. Okay? And for some reason, once your pancreas, that organ that's responsible for producing this insulin, is not working efficiently anymore, because the sugar levels are much elevated, and long term they cause vascular disease. So in particular the small blood vessels. So the vessels to the brain, the kidney, and the lower limbs. That's why people have numbness. What are some signs and symptoms of diabetes? Let me hear from you. Discoloration of the feet, very good. Huh? Yeah, limbs. Very good. Huh? Blindness, one of the number 1 worldwide preventable causes of blindness is diabetes. Yes, numbness, tingling. What about, weight loss? Eating more, but not putting on the weight. Peeing a lot in the day. Peeing a lot. And you're not drinking as much water. Getting up through the night a few times to pee. All right? Weight loss, feeling hungry, thirsty, tired. Sometimes there's no symptoms, just showing up to the doctor when you do the test, it's elevated. All right? Or your family's there, sadly those things happen. So when you look at, so sugar diabetes, these are the bigger things that we have to look for. So persons who have limb damages, guess what happened? They step on a pin or needle because there's poor healing in diabetics, poor circulation. What happened? That needle is stuck in the foot and they don't even realize it. Sadly, moves a limb. These are things preventable, or sadly end up on dialysis. Preventable. manageable. In this day and age, we as men should have it. Prostate, let's go to that because I know we have to move on. In our country, major issues. I don't know why the men don't take one day off like this to get their health check. One day. You do it twice a year, you're even doing better. One day to get your general physical check. And studies show now at age 45, you're starting your prostate check. If you had a family member who had prostate cancer, you want to check a few years, like 5 years prior to when they were diagnosed. So if daddy, brother was diagnosed at 45, you want to start checking at 40. Give yourself a heads up. So screening, taking a day. How many of y'all had your physical this year? By show of hands. You had your physical done already? Twice this year, very good. You had your physical. Full check. Your bloods and everything. Your prostate. Okay. Colonoscopy. You had your colonoscopy done? You had your colonoscopy done? Very good. This year. Yeah. Very good. All right, so prostate. Again, the prostate cancer is rising in our setting, and it takes a simple test. It's difficult because there are a few things that can be done. You can do an ultrasound scan, but what we call is still a traditional digital rectal exam. Painful. I had mine done a couple of years ago for the first time, and I couldn't believe it. I saw what man felt. But it's a short test. 1 minute, and if your doctor's there, look what way. Talk to me. Tell me.
You're sharing the time space.
You're sharing the time space. Sorry, I'm finished right now. You keep talking younger there. I know that between two handsome young guys, right? So I'm finished right now. So prostate again, very, very important. Simple test, do your PSA, and also have the doctor check your prostate for the size, shape, and any prostate changes will usually show up with, peeing more or less. Blood, you see blood when you pass urine. When you're standing there for a long time, it's not coming out, feel still full. Or when it comes out, you still feel, a fullness. You want to check that. And your colonoscopy is the new thing now. Getting your colon checked. You saw a young guy from Black Panther, is it? What's his name? Young guy, Chadwick. 40-something, there, prostate. You think, man, this isn't in a black, black race don't have colon, but it's not true. It's popping up more and more in our setting because of the diet and lack thereof. And so thank you very much. I'm going to hand this back over to save the questions or points for later on.
Okay, so good afternoon again, gents.
Good afternoon.
It's good to be here and to be a part of this illustrious panel. Dr. Collie spoke on the physical aspect of men's health. I will be speaking more on the mental aspect of men's health. Okay, so I have prepared a brief presentation that will guide my points. And let's begin. So we will begin by looking at mental health, by defining mental health. So what is mental health? Mental health is a recognition of one's own ability. So it's having a healthy sense of what you're capable of doing. Okay? It also has to do with being able to cope with normal everyday stresses. So you don't allow yourself to become overwhelmed by simple things. You get a flat tire and you want to have a meltdown. So you don't allow yourself to become overwhelmed. You can also work productively and you have the capacity to make contributions to your community. Okay, so you're able to work and you're able to produce and you're able to make contributions to your community, to your society. Okay?
Next slide.
Right. So, continuing with what is mental health. So mental health also has to do with, stand for a minute, has to do with the maintenance of being able to maintain successful mental activity. So you're able to think, you're able to think on one thing for a sustained period of time without your mind wandering here, there, and everywhere. Okay? You're also able to maintain daily activities, and also maintain healthy relationships with others. So you're able to maintain healthy relationships with family, friends, and so on. Also includes the ability to adapt to change and, like I mentioned on the previous slide, cope with life stresses. So change happens, and again, you don't fall apart. You're able to adjust, and you're able to adapt, and you're able to move on. Next slide, please. Okay, so in summary, the individual who is mentally healthy has the ability to learn. There are no learning disabilities. There are no learning obstructions. He has the ability to feel, express, and manage a range of positive and negative emotions. So he's emotionally healthy. He also has the ability to form and maintain good relationships with others and cope with and manage change and uncertainty. Now, you cannot understand mental health without not looking at mental illness and vice versa. So we're going to look a bit now at mental illness. So, mental illness. Okay, so before I get to mental illness, let's look at some prevalence. So, I got my stats from the North, our neighbor the North, the US of A, because for some reason, finding healthy stats here in the Bahamas is a bit of a challenge. So I pulled some stats from the US. So according to the National Center for Health Statistics, nearly 1 in 10 men experience depression and anxiety. Men die by suicide 3.5 times more than women. That is very interesting. And also, about 6 of every 10 men experience at least one traumatic event in his life. And then men are also almost 2 times more likely to binge drink than females. Okay, so men are more likely than females to have a drinking problem. And then, lastly, 49% of men feel more depressed than they admit to the people in their lives. So that means, or this implies that men suffer in silence. So they are depressed, they are anxious, they're having their mental moments, but they're not expressing themselves for whatever reason. Okay, and so they are more likely to be depressed and not admit it. So looking now at mental illness. Mental illness, what is it? Mental illness is a condition that affects the way a person thinks, the way a person feels, especially about himself, others, and the world, the way a person behaves, and the way a person relates to others. So the person who is mentally unhealthy has thinking patterns and thinking attributes that are considered abnormal. Okay? So this may be the person who thinks that he is Michael Jackson's brother, or who thinks that Mary is his mother. Okay? They also behave in ways that are not sanctioned by the community in which, or the culture in which we live. So this may be the person who is walking around naked, or who is walking around flapping his wings his hands like a chicken. All right. Mental illness also has to do with deviation from socially accepted standards of interpersonal behavior, and all that means is that in interpersonal relationships, there's a lot of tension, there's a lot of friction, and you're very unreasonable in terms of coming to a resolution. Being mentally ill also has to do with the inability to perform one's sanctioned roles. So you're unable to perform your role as a father, or as a husband, or as a priest, or whatever. Also, an illness with psychological or behavioral manifestations and/or impairment in functioning due to social, psychological, physical, genetic, or biological factors. So, what is the criteria for being mentally healthy? One, there must be emotional balance. So you're able to balance positive emotions with negative emotions. You're able to experience a range of emotions without remaining or being stuck in any one of them. Also, you're able to adjust socially. So you're able to experience social adjustment. You're able to perceive things the way they are. So you don't look at the sky that is blue and see sky that is yellow. Okay, so if you see the sky, it's blue, it's blue. Consistent with the ability and consistent with ability and opportunities. So, improving your mental health. So Dr. Collie would have shared some things that you can do to prevent certain non-communicable diseases. The same principle applies to the mental health arena. There are things that you can do, there are things you should do, there are things you must do in order to preserve your mental health and sustain a state of being mentally healthy. And some things that you can do is you want to begin by talking to yourself in positive ways and thinking positively. So become aware. All of us, we are having a conversation with ourselves 24 hours a day. As long as we are awake, we are having a conversation with ourselves. And for some of us, this conversation is leading. So we're constantly telling ourselves negative things. Oh, I'm stupid. Oh, I'm dumb. Oh, I'm this. Oh, I'm that. So one of the things that you can do to improve your mental health is to become aware of this conversation and change the way that you're talking to yourself. I'm smart. I'm capable. I can do this. Okay? Then you want to practice being grateful. Being grateful for the big things, the small things, the medium-sized things. Okay? Focus on one thing at a time. You want to live in the moment. Then exercise. Okay? So exercise is good for maintaining physical health as well as mental health. And then you want to practice eating healthy and nutritious meals. Again, this one is important for maintaining your physical health as well as your mental health. And then you want to connect with others, and by that I mean forming healthy relationships, and that is with persons from both sexes. Okay, and then you want to develop a sense of meaning and purpose in life. This one is very important because a lot of people who go on to experience mental challenges, you find that they have no sense of meaning or purpose in their lives. And then you want to develop coping skills and then learn to relax. You know, sometimes as men, I think the word relax is almost like an obscenity because we have not learned exactly what that means. And it's important because learning to relax, it brings about balance. So it adds balance to your life. So when you work all week, by the end of your week, you should allocate some time for relaxation. And relaxation can be as unique as many of you are in here. It can be as simple as going to the beach, or it can be as complicated as or as expensive as going on a cruise. Okay? So whatever works for you, you work on it. And I think that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much, and I will now hand the mic over to Mr. Lang.
Alright, excellent. So I know time is of the essence, so I didn't go as far as bringing my PowerPoint presentation, I'd say. So, and also additionally, when it comes to my presentations, retention is of the essence. So what I want to do is I want to make it as intimate and as personable as possible. I'm going to give you guys a quick little CV of who I am. Of course, as you're I'm the manager, nutrition advisor, and fitness professional of Cardiovascular Experience. When it comes to my background, I'm a certified personal trainer, group fitness instructor, and I also have my bachelor's from the University of the Bahamas. But when it comes to my specialty and my purpose of being here today is to give you guys some advice on exactly what's required to start to stay a healthy lifestyle. And so what I loved about the other presenters is that everything pretty much functioned in a cohesive manner, everything correlated. So the mental aspect and the touch on the physical aspect. And so what I'm going to touch on today exactly is the proactive measures that you need to take in order to start and sustain a healthy lifestyle. And also to avoid even have to acquire hypertension, diabetes, coronary heart disease, and so on and so forth. All right? And so what I'm going to talk to you guys about is not based upon an emotional standpoint of how I feel. It's based upon science, based upon research, based upon how the body was designed to function. Okay? And so when it comes to the 100% makeup, let's say of healthy living, as we use that jargon, 70% of it is based upon practicing an adequate amount of proper nutrition. 20 to 30% of it is based upon practicing an adequate amount of physical activity. So we understand if we get the full 70 in the nutritional aspect and the full 30 in the 100 aspect and the physical activity aspect, then we can consider ourselves as having the full 100 and being successful for when it comes to starting to stay in a healthy lifestyle. So what we're going to do, we're going to talk about the smallest chunk, which will be physical activity. But understand during the introduction icebreaker that I explained to you that physical activity still doesn't even go half as much power when it comes to practicing proper nutrition. So understand that to prevent, let's say, diabetes, coronary heart disease, or hypertension, walking every day isn't enough. It isn't. Because if you look at that, that's only 20, 30 out of 100, which let's say if we were in secondary ed or even tertiary, that would still be a failing grade. So physical activity good, you still could get the full 30, and the four main variables that need to be present is cardiovascular, resistance, flexibility, and recovery. That's four variables. Cardiovascular, of course, has to deal with exercises and activities that require your heart. So like walking, jogging, biking. Based upon science, not by how I feel, but whatever's trained to research, American College of Sports Medicine and even World Health Organization recommends that you get about 150 minutes of cardiovascular activity weekly. 150. So if you work that out, let's say a 5-day span, that's how much? That's about 30 minutes per day. So 30 minutes of walking daily can ensure that you get an adequate amount of cardiovascular activity. That's one. Now the next variable we talk about is resistance training. Cardio is really effective for decreasing size. So for persons who are trying to get to a healthy BMI, which they were designed to function, when it comes to the BMI class, we have severely underweight, we have underweight, we have normal weight, we have overweight, obese class 1, obese class 2, obese class 3. Based upon our nation, our population, most Bahamians are within 30 to 40. So the safe range of 18.5 to 25 is the normal range. And studies have been proven for persons from a physical activity standpoint who have majority of their physical activity or cardiovascular has been proven to be conducive towards weight loss. So if you're a person who's looking for weight loss, yes, you need an adequate amount of cardiovascular activity in your regimen. So that's walking, jogging, biking in a nutshell. Because remember, I don't want to touch on too much to lose you. The next variable that we'll talk about, which is important, it isn't equally as important, is resistance training. So cardio decreases the size, but resistance training sculpts the body and makes you nice and lean. All right, because after, let's say, dropping 100, 120, 130 pounds, you don't want to be jiggling. You feel me? So you still need to ensure that there's an adequate amount of resistance training to tone and lean out your body, and to ensure that muscle growth, and to ensure that an adequate muscle mass is on the physique. And in that resistance training focus, it can't be a one-sided focus. It needs to be a holistic focus. So you can't just focus on biceps, you can't just focus on shoulders, you can't just focus on back. And also additionally, what you have to ensure that you don't do, yes, your bicep might be your weak area, your core might be your weak area, but if you only focus on that area in particular, imbalances could happen, which is a serious problem when it comes to an injury standpoint. So it needs to be a holistic focus. You need to focus on all the different muscle groups, so bicep, tricep, shoulder, back, core, and so on and so forth. And what you need to understand is that when it comes to muscle growth growth happens through repetition, repetitive action, ensuring that you isolate the muscle group in the correct fashion. So let's say if it comes to something like a bicep curl, a bicep, the most common and most easy exercise is a bicep curl. But in order for hypertrophy to happen, you got to keep hitting that muscle group over and over and over, let's say about 3 times. And so a lot of persons, they like to give up within that last set. But you have to understand the way that muscle group is designed, that last set plays a pivotal role in the entire growth process. So you hit it in the correct fashion, repetitively, let's say 3 sets of 10, and then what you want to do, even though with this, we have some secondary muscle groups when we do something like a bicep curl, you still have to isolate and stabilize the elbow, then you have full extension and contraction when it comes to the forearm to ensure that you're isolating biceps. Do 3 sets of that, let's say 3 sets of 10 for someone who's new. You hit that to ensure that you see some improvement, let's say 2 times out of the week. 2 times out of the week to ensure muscle group happen. Same thing you'll do with all of the different muscle groups yourself. Okay? If this seems like foreign to you, and let's say you can't afford a fitness trainer right now, there are persons who are making millions from YouTube. Millions. And YouTube there's actually a lot of persons who are even getting degrees from YouTube. Because I can tell you from my 4-year experience, YouTube helped me to understand a lot of the things that my PhD professors couldn't explain to me. So the reason why I said that is that you could go on YouTube to learn the correct way to do a bicep curl. Okay? So if you don't have money at your disposal, of course, having a subject matter expert, a certified fitness trainer, then who knows exactly how to work with the body to avoid injury is of the essence, is the first category. But let's say if you can do that, then go into YouTube to learn the correct way and ensuring that the YouTube database that you look at is from a scholarly database is perfectly fine. Okay? So that's cardiovascular, that's flexibility. Now for recovery. So muscles, and let's say in order to be balanced when it comes to physical activity, yes, of course, we know the 7 to 8 hours of sleep is very important. Very important. But giving each muscle group an adequate amount of time to recover is equally as important as well. Okay? So there's a fine line between undertraining and overtraining. Undertraining or challenging that muscle group enough. Because what we have to understand, as soon as an exercise becomes easy, in most cases that's an indication that an exercise with our muscle group is less challenging. So what we have to understand the difference between undertraining and overtraining. The right amount of training would be the example that I used previously. So doing the 3 sets of bicep curls, focusing on bicep curls, 2 days within a 7-day span, giving the muscle group about 40 to 72 hours to recover. Anything more than that in the beginning stages I would consider as excessive and will fit within the parameters of overtraining. So the exact same repercussions that you would have been worried about for undertraining, you now have to worry about for overtraining, and also you have to worry about injuries. Okay? So recovery, we have to get an adequate amount of sleep to 7 to 8 hours. Very important when it comes to hypertrophy, muscle growth, and also additionally giving your body an adequate amount of time to recharge. The same as I gave Taja not too long ago, I gave her my phone to fill it up to 100%. It's the same thing you have to do to your body. The way that you recharge your body to the 100 is by getting an adequate amount of sleep. And when it comes to a physical activity standpoint, that's very important. You have to give your body an adequate amount of time to recharge. Okay? And flexibility is a large variable. So when it comes to flexibility, starting your workout and ending your workout, regardless of how much time you have, regardless if it's only 20 minutes, take my foolish advice, take 2 to 3 minutes and start with a warm-up and an active stretch and end it with a cool down to return those muscle groups in your body back to its natural state. Because not only from a calorie burning standpoint, yes, by doing a thorough warm-up, you're preparing the muscle group and you're prepping it for the workout so you'll be able to do more, but also from an injury standpoint. Even like when it comes to lower back injuries or knee injuries, for most clients, those can be prevented if the warm-up prepared them for the exercise session. So what we have to understand too is that if we're working legs, the warm-up should prepare our legs. It shouldn't only be preparing our back. So the warm-up needs to be relevant and needs to be applicable to the workout that you're doing. Okay? So flexibility, warming up, stretching, getting that body ready is very important. So for if you get all 4 of those different variables, then you get that full 30 out of the 100, starting to stay in a healthy lifestyle. Now for the nutritional one, the 70%. It seems foreign because when it comes the 70 points, it seems in early stages for participants who start with cardioblasts or even persons who I'm starting with a meal plan and keeping it clean. It sounds so foreign because from birth we were trained the wrong way to live. We were trained the wrong way to live and the wrong way to eat. In most cases, when we train our children from adolescence, it started is, as you guys use an example, that started with toning grits. Or even that started with pancakes with simple carbohydrates. Rather than telling them to start your day with oatmeal prepared the correct way. And what is so powerful, I had someone very close to me, a family member not too long ago, who acquired COVID-19 now, they're now trying to return back to their natural state and they're off of medication. And the treatment now that they're giving the person who's close to me to return back to that natural state, she said it's very easier because it's the exact same thing she was doing in cardioblast. And what I tell persons is that once you treat your body the way that it's designed to be treated, you achieve optimal health and you're able to function at your peak performance. And so when it comes to the way that we're supposed to eat, feeling as if you're only supposed to eat 1 or 2 meals within a day is the wrong thing. What we're actually supposed to do, we're supposed to eat more meals consistently, but portion control is king. Alright? Because what's going to happen is that your body's going to get used to receiving the food at such a rapid pace, your metabolism is going to rev up, and everything else is going to be a lot easier. Once you master that aspect, then you understand that your body's like an engine. So the exact same way that you tune up your vehicles, let's say every 6 months, you tune up your body every day by giving your body the main macros that it needs to thrive. So carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. And as Dr. Collie touched on, when it comes to carbohydrates, because then I run out of time, but simple carbohydrates is the main things we need to cut out. So we need to, I understand they taste good, but you have to understand is if you keep indulging in them,